So it's been a couple of weeks. I've been sick. I had no voice for the better part of a month, it feels like. And there's about 700 new faces on the channel. So I suppose a welcome is in order. Welcome to the channel. I'm the SSG. Let's go ahead and talk about a couple of things. So a couple of weeks ago, my buddy Dave posed a question to a Facebook group I belong to, asking, why do we prefer real hardware? Why do we prefer emulation? And what's it all for really anyway? And to give you a little bit of context behind this, he'd been playing around with a PS2 emulator, trying to see just how far he could crank things up visually, etc. And it kind of made him step back for a second. Sitting right beside him, he had a PS2 modified, I believe, countless games around him, all of this hardware, CRTs, upscalers, or at least line doublers, all of this tech. And yet right in front of him, there was an emulator that could do everything he wanted it to. And I think, for me at least, I need to consolidate that question and basically just put it this way. What's the point of real hardware? I mean, granted, I absolutely love real hardware. I rarely emulate. And when I do, it's generally because I can't find a game otherwise, or the price is just so exorbitant, I'm not gonna pay for it, to be honest with you. But there's a lot of negatives, or disadvantages rather, that come with them, playing on real hardware. For one, there's the simple fact of space. I mean, I have 9 consoles plugged in at this very moment. Well, technically 10 if you include the second PS2. That's a lot of space in an entertainment center. I have countless games. I have all this memorabilia, all these games on this nice little mantle up here. I have all of this stuff that by many people's accounts is just junk or trash or toys, whatever you want to call it. And yet it's here. And yes, it takes up an innumerable amount of space. But even more so than that, there's the simple fact of cost. I mean, a working PS1 in good condition in my area is easily going to run you $30. Now, that's a PS1. If you want to talk about way up there, we can get into the AES. And that's not even counting the cost of games, peripherals, all the rest of this stuff. Panzer Dragoon Saga, 600, 800 USD. That's insane. Most people aren't going to pay that just to have an original piece of hardware, an original game, playing it. I mean, that's a repro up there. Prime example. And besides all of that, there's the simple fact of how do we play these games? There are CRT purists who are dedicated to keeping the old tubes alive. And more so than that, PVMs and BVMs, that's a cost in and of itself. $1,000 for a 20-inch, whatever. I'm not even a PVM guy, I'll be honest with you. But in my instance, I upscale almost everything I play. Whenever it was the OSSC, that was $200. I didn't really like what the OSSC looked like. I didn't really dig the, line doubling and everything else. If you like it, cool, that's you. I'm not worried about it. There's a lot other alternatives on the market. But for me at least, I run the FrameMeister. That's $400. And then there's the deal with trying to figure out, what's going on with the menu, whether it's natural mode or picture mode for 480i. I mean, there's so much hassle that comes with using this old kit in whatever format you want to. And I can right now scroll over on my desktop, click on a couple of folders, open up an emulator, play any PS1 game I want, any PS2 game I want, Sega Saturn, whatever the case is. Hell, I can run a Model 2 emulator and play games like Gunblade New York, which I absolutely loved growing up. And unless my wife is, gonna allow me to go ahead and pick up a cab, which I promise you, she's not. That's a very unhappy wife if I did that. I tried it before. I'm never gonna be able to experience that in my home, except for through emulation. So there's a lot of advantages that emulation have over real hardware. But with all that said, I still personally prefer to play on these old consoles. I love the old equipment, the feel of original hardware in my hands, opening up a game, taking the disc out or the cartridge, whatever the case is, and slapping it in the system, waiting for load times. It's just part of the experience for me. So is it really just nostalgia? Is Is it just me trying to relive my past or keep a hold of some childhood memory from way back in the 90s? And the more I thought about it, I can't say it is. It's not just nostalgia, there's something more to it. I mean, nostalgia means that it's not there anymore. I'm reliving it. And I think we throw that word around just a little bit too much. I mean, granted, it's very appropriate sometimes. But most of this hardware isn't even original anymore. It's been rebuilt or it's been modified. I mean, I can play backups on my Saturns. I've got a GDMU in one of my Dreamcast. My PS2 is hard drive modded. On top of that, my Xbox is soft modded. And that's not even taking into account that I'm not playing these games in the original resolutions I was way back in the 90s. I mean, yeah, I used my CRT over there, but we didn't even grow up with a TV that had composite on it. I had a 19-inch wooden floor model growing up. I played games over the fuzz of beautiful RF. I knew absolutely nothing better. And whenever I got the CRT that sits in the corner of my room back in 2001, it had composite, it had component, it had S-video, it had so much going on, it blew my mind. But I'm not playing those games as I originally did. So, and that's not even to talk about RGB SCART or any of the rest of that stuff that never even came to America. So I'm not really being nostalgic in the sense of trying to relive the past as it was. More so, I'm trying to keep something alive. I'm trying to keep all of this real. And I'm doing it for a simple purpose, really. It's because I want to share these memories. I want to share these experiences. I want people to see and know how these games impacted me. And not just y'all. I mean, I appreciate every single one of you who watch my videos, and I love it whenever y'all comment and interact with me and share with me your experiences, your life story, how games impacted you. But the truth of the matter is if nothing else, I do this for her. And by her, I mean my daughter. See, I'm already being able to do it now because she can come in here and she can play around with my consoles and try to open up my Dreamcast and try to get her hands around a controller, and it's awesome to see that. But in a couple of years, I'm going to be able to experience these games with her. I'm going to be able to show her how I grew up. I mean, just the other day, whenever I got a twin stick in the mail, by the way, we got some videos of that coming up, hint, hint. But, she was able to sit in front of me, and I got to show her this thing, something I had only seen in the arcades, and we both got to experience that for the first time together. She was amazed by the clickiness and all these buttons and everything else, and it just blew her little mind away. And it was awesome to see that. It was awesome to experience with her. And I think that's what it really all boils down to me, is that I just want to keep these experiences alive. Not necessarily what I went through all those years ago. Not necessarily whenever I was growing up playing these games, because my appreciation is so different now. My understanding is so different now. I mean, I'm not really even an arcade gamer. I like storytelling. I like immersion. But it all boils down to the fact that I love sharing these experiences. I love talking about them. And I get the chance to do that by having these things. So I really want to know what reason you have behind whether it be real hardware or emulation. Let me and everybody know why it is, and don't just use a cookie cutter answer. Actually think about it for a minute and tell me and everybody else why it is you prefer it. And I mean, obviously there's no wrong answers. I'm not going to hold judgment either way, man. I mean, I emulate too. But I really want to know, because it's a really interesting question, and I think it all boils down to the fact of how we want to experience these games, or rather how we want to experience this entire experience. But besides that, there are a number of new members to the channel, and I guess I'm going to start calling y'all members now. I really don't like the word fan, but there's 700 new people watching this channel. There's nearly 1,200 of you right now. That's more people than are in the town I grew up in. And that blows my mind. I can't even imagine 1,200. I can remember at the very beginning of the year whenever there was 302 of y'all, and I was blown away by that. And I really want to give a massive shout out to all of y'all. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the interaction. So, to give you a little idea of what's coming up, since the channel's pretty much been on sick leave for the past month, we've got some twin sticks action, obviously. We've got a little bit of mecha action. We've got Saturn action. And to be honest with you, we're gonna move away from Sega a little bit, because as much as I love Sega, as much as I'm the Southern Sega gentleman, there's a lot of stuff I love otherwise, and I want to be able to talk about it and share those experiences with y'all. So let me know your comments down below. Let me know exactly, or rather why it is you prefer what you prefer, and if it's both, it's both. It doesn't matter. And besides that, something I've been wanting to try to do is I've got a Discord server, and I'm going to start putting a link to it in every single video. If you're on Discord and you want to join up and chat with me and other members of the community, which this is becoming, then feel free to join and jump in there, talk to us, tell us what's going on. I mean, granted, I work 40 hours a week, but I'd love to hear from you and I'd love to conversate with you. But with all that said, I'm the SSG, and this is me, signing out.